This webinar will cover the admin section of Mercury. It's the most comprehensive admin webinar that we have, and it's useful if you want to understand how the CRM works behind the scenes. If you need to manage users or make any changes to Mercury customizations, this is one of the better webinars to watch. I'd recommend that you open your Mercury and have a go at doing some of these admin tasks along with the webinar. The webinar does move quite quickly, so it'll be good for you to pause the webinar and have a bit of a play in between if you know that this particular admin function is something that you're likely to use. And I'm assuming that you have full admin access to Mercury, so if there's anything that you see in this webinar that you can't see in your own login, talk to the director of your company or talk to the help desk here and we can let you know how you can gain more access. We'll be running through the admin tab in full. From the My Details section, you can edit your personal details here. These details get pushed through to Apply Online and also to some compliance documents. So this can be updated at any time. You can change your password here, and you can manage your email profiles here, and these are just your email signatures. The exact setup of email signatures is covered in another webinar. Register for SMS is something that we recommend that every Mercury user does if they're sending SMSs from Mercury. If you don't register your mobile for SMS, every time you send an SMS to a client, it will appear to come from an overseas number. So you need to register, which will send you a verification password. You just type in the password that you receive on your mobile into here and click on Submit, and that will register your mobile. And that means that every time you send a message from Mercury, it'll appear to come from your own mobile. And that's pretty important because then your clients can actually text you back. In the Partner Details section, this is where you can edit your company details, like your company business name and trading name, address, updating the company logo. This is where you would upload an image of your logo, which will be embedded into the compliance documents. So in this area here, it's best to keep the image size quite low. We suggest usually about 250 pixels wide, something around there, just so it doesn't push all of your text off your document. Virtual branches, this is covered in a shorter admin webinar. It's pretty complicated to explain what a virtual branch is and why you'd use it, so we'll skip over this for now. The internal news section, what you can do is add news articles here that your office might be interested in. What will happen when you add an article is it will appear in this news tab. So by default, the news tab will display any of our notifications, so any of our updates about Mercury releases or any issues in Mercury or Apply Online. But if you add one yourself, it will also show here and anyone in the company can view those updates. So for example, if it is someone in the office's birthday, you can add an update there. When you add an update, you can actually force it to pop up when users log into Mercury. So you could type in this happy birthday message, click on publish, and if you tick on announcement, it'll actually pop up as well when a user logs in, and they'll have to just close the announcement. If you click on users terms and conditions, it means that users will have to read the message, and the only way they can get rid of the message is to click on I agree to the terms and conditions and then close the message afterwards. Setup of the outgoing mail server is also covered in another webinar, and so is the bulk SMS setup. So the status editor and the task templates are covered in a separate webinar as well. So we'll move on to the list editor. What this editor does is it allows you to customize some of the drop-down lists in Mercury. So you'll see here this lists all of the address types. We've got fund types, and I think anywhere in Mercury that you can see a drop-down list, you can edit the list here. You can also add loan categories here. So if you're not familiar with loan categories, I'll quickly show you where in Mercury you can find them. what we'll do is open an opportunity, and you'll see categories here. You can put loans in one or more categories, and then from the CRM you can filter your opportunities and only bring up loans that are 1 year fixed, or only investment loans, or something like that, just however you'd like to filter your opportunities. If you have any questions about the list editor, just put through a help desk ticket. There are some options in there that are a bit vague and it's not too obvious what you're actually editing. So put a help desk ticket through if you're curious, and we can run through that with you. The filter lenders option is for more for company directors. If you're sure that no one else in your company is going to ever write loans with a certain lender, you can hide that lender from the whole company so no users can see it. Just remove the tick box from the lender, and any user under your company will never be able to see that lender in Mercury. So it's pretty dangerous. Only do it if you're dead certain they'll never use the lender. The questionnaires are quite a powerful tool. You already have by default a responsible lending fact find, and this has been put together by our compliance team. That asks clients all of the questions that need to be answered for every loan that you write with them. Because it's a master document, you can't actually edit this questionnaire. So if I double click on this, it'll just bring up sort of a demo of what your questionnaire looks like. You can see it's just gathering information. So you can either do that with a text box here and a customizable question, or a drop-down list and radio buttons, just to gather data from your clients. So while this one is a master document, you can actually make a questionnaire completely from scratch. When your customer fills out the questionnaire, it'll come through in a Word document with the question on one side and the answer on the other side. So it's useful if you'd like to send out any kind of survey to your clients, really. So if you want to make a new one or copy the master template, you could either click on New Questionnaire or Clone Question Set. We'll take a look at the cloned copy that we have here. You'll see that each page of that question set that I was looking at is listed here as a module. Within that module are the questions themselves. So on page 1 there'll be 5 questions. When the client clicks on next, they'll get to page 2 with only 4 questions. So if you'd like, you can just have all of the questions on one page or break it up into different modules there. When you click on the question itself, this is where you can set what kind of answer you want the client to give. So this one says text multiple. That means it's multiple lines of text. It's more of a text box. Text single would just be one line to type into. You can specify that it should be a dollar amount, and then everything the client types will have a dollar symbol added in front, and a number of other options here. So there's your checkbox. It's good to have a play around with these, so make the questionnaire and then have a look at what it looks like afterwards. You can set whether the question is mandatory or not. And so it's better to have a play around with this. I'll make a couple of different question types and display types here, and have a look at what comes out. If you click on preview, it'll give you an example of what you've created. So you can make some changes and then directly afterwards preview what you've done. The introduction here is what the clients will see when they open up the questionnaire. And the email text here, when you send out your questionnaire, this is the email that will go out. It'll pull through the client's first names here and give them a link to the question set. So you can customize this email however you like. We'll click on Save and Exit and make sure we've activated the questionnaire. And I'll have a demo of what that looks like. From an opportunity, we would click on Select a questionnaire, find the one that we've copied, and this is just a demo for our records. As it's been added to the list there, looks like this might be the one. Yep. If you click on Email Link to Question Set, this is where you see the email text that we were editing before. So you have an opportunity now to edit the text if you need to. It sends through a link to the questionnaire set, so the clients will basically click on this link and it'll direct them to here. As well as that, you can find a link to the questionnaire set yourself by clicking on Launch an External Window. So select the questionnaire and launch it like that, and it also gives you a preview here of what the clients will see. They can see your company logo, and they can click here to begin the questionnaires. So we've got the first module here. They click on Next, view the next module, and just run through the entire question set. As I remember, we made one of these questions mandatory, so if I click on Submit, it actually warns that all of the required questions need to be answered. I'll go through to the end once again, and when they click on Submit right at the end, the loan writer and the admin person on the opportunity will get an email notifying them that it's been completed. And back in Mercury, what you'll find is when you double click to open it here, you'll actually see the answers right here. As well as this, you can export the answers once they've filled them in by clicking on Print. Now you have two options here. You can print off just the questions, or you can print the questions and the responses. So we haven't actually got any responses in there, so I'll add a couple just as a demo. So say our clients have come back with responses and we want to generate that in a document now for whatever reason. These answers will automatically come through to the prelim assessment if you're doing the master responsible lending fact find. If you make your own questionnaire though, you can print out the answers just in its own document, and it'll look something like this. Alright, so we've got the question here and the response, and it just goes all the way through the questionnaire there. So if you'd like to make a custom questionnaire and then print out the answers for your records, you can do so just from here. You can add extra people categories quite easily by just clicking on the green plus. So as we can see, we've already got some categories that we've manually added, and we've sectioned off our database into Collingwood supporters and Essendon supporters, etc. You can add any custom category here that you'd like. It's useful if you'd like to group all your clients into a certain category and then maybe email them some specific marketing. We'll have a look in the CRM and see where you'd find the categories. They're just all listed down here. So if I click on this, you'll see these are the users that I have allocated to that specific category. You can be in more than one category at a time, so Lisa could be in both Collingwood supporter and over 50. The lead sources is quite similar. This is just a list of where your opportunities have come from. So within each opportunity, you can assign a lead source, and you can then report on your lead sources. That's a different webinar, but it lets you basically assess how effective that particular lead is. Email templates are useful if you find yourself often sending the same email out to people. Rather than typing it out every time, you can set up a template here. So we'll have a look at one we've already created, the settled template. So this just says, congratulations, your loan has settled. The tags here let you bring through client data that is entered into the client record. So obviously, if you're sending this to multiple users, it'll bring through the first name of every user you send it to. It'll bring through, with this particular one, the date that the opportunity settled and the loan writer. You can see all of the available tags here, so it's good to have a play around with some email templates. And we'll show you how to actually add the templates. On the CRM, you'd click on Email Merge. We'll say all of these people here. So we've got 5 recipients. Click on Apply Email Template, this icon, and we'll apply this one. So we have a demo here of each individual email, and you'll see it's using the first name of each person. Might not have these details actually entered against the person, so they won't display. That's why it's always a good idea to just double check before you send these out. Moving on to the Manage Users section. Now each company can set up as many Mercury users as they like, so you don't have to have all of your admin people using one admin login. There's no extra charge to set up a new user. What we do recommend though is to definitely have a mobile number entered. You can't actually create a user without one. And an email address as well. If you don't enter these two things, it won't let you create the user. For this one, we'll enter some demo information. Now, it's really important to enter the mobile and email, because if this user forgets their password, they are able to reset the password by receiving a SMS code and then a link through to their email to reset their password. If they don't have these details entered, or if they have incorrect email or mobile number in the field, they won't be able to get access to their account if they forget their password. In that case, we're not able to help reset passwords. They will have to come to a company director or the person who set them up, so that can be quite inconvenient. It's best to make sure these details are correct. Once they've set up, you can set the password as well. Make sure they have Mercury Access ticked. On the wiki, there's a breakdown of what each of these access levels mean. By default, you'd usually want to give people at least Mercury Access, and Global Admin Access lets them see other people's opportunities as well. So if you only give them Mercury Access, they can only see their own opportunities and people. And you can manage users in the same way. This will bring up a list of the users you've already created. Just double click on the user and you get the same exact editing options. You'll see that there's a loan writer column. Our sales team activate loan writers once we've received all of the appropriate documentation. So this is something that you can't edit yourself. It's something that we switch on in the background. If you remove someone's Mercury Access, it'll mean they can't log in with their username and password anymore. And they won't appear on this list, they'll actually appear in the inactive users list. Last of all, we've got the data section. Extract raw data is covered in another admin webinar. The import contacts also actually has its own webinar, but we'll quickly run through what you can do. If you have a spreadsheet, you can click on this search icon here, find the spreadsheet on your computer and map the spreadsheet columns to fields in Mercury. Have a search of the wiki if you're interested in doing that. You are able to sync your Mercury CRM to Google, and it's a good way to use Google to link through to all of your devices. So once you've synced it to Google, you can then set your mobile phone to grab the details as well, and your Outlook and a number of different applications that you may use. I will note that you can only sync from Mercury to Google. If you make a change in Google or on your other apps, it won't sync back to Mercury. And that's just for security reasons. We don't want other programs messing with any data that you have in Mercury, so Mercury will be used as your data hub. To set up syncing with Google, you would click on CRM Sync Settings and tick Enable Contact Syncing or Enable Calendar Syncing. It brings up a browser window and it asks you to log into Gmail. Once you've logged in, it asks you to allow Mercury to have access to your Gmail contacts. Now you do actually have to tell Mercury which contacts you want to sync. It won't automatically push through every single contact. So to do that, you would go over to your CRM and find the contacts you'd like to sync, select them all and click on Add to Sync. We'll give this a go with just this contact. What you'll see is it's got a sync icon here. So as long as you've set up syncing with Google, you can be sure that John Citizen will now be pushed across to your Gmail contacts. Every time you make a change to John, it resends his information through, so it is quite up to date. CRM syncing. This is just a list of all the contacts that you currently have synced with Google. Once you've added them to the sync list, you would expect them to all show up here. You can also search for the ones that are on the list. The recycle bin is extremely useful. You can't actually ever delete people, opportunities, tasks or notes. They always come to the recycle bin. From here you can select any of the records and just click on restore and send them back to the CRM. You can sort by deleted on, so find out who's been deleting things most recently. Tells you who's deleted them. So it's really handy just sort of as an audit trail, so one of your users can't go through and delete a whole bunch of things. You can do the same with opportunities, tasks and notes. So it's a good backup there. So that's about it for this admin webinar. If we did skip over anything, just have a search of the wiki. There are a few other admin webinars which cover some of the other features in more depth. Hopefully everything that you wanted to know about was covered in this one.